Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to Draft Workbench and how to combine draft and sketch to create complex models. Limitations in sketches, you could only draw stuff in 2D space. So by combining with draft tool, you could explore 3D world. Also, array is a powerful tool in draft workbench. You could look at one of my prior videos on that, and link is in the description. So let's start with a new model. So I'm going to go to, okay, first I'm going to go and create a new model. Okay, so now let's go to the draft workbench. Now a little bit of introduction to draft the workbench. So the main things that I'm going to use here is this is called the snap tools, and this is the draft creation tool. Okay, so if you go to view and tools, and you can switch off and switch on these different toolbars, so they correspond to these tools. Okay, so right now I have few of them switched on, but mainly the one that I'm focusing on today's tutorial is the draft creation tool and the draft snap tool. Those are the only two that will be useful in this exercise. So having said that, let's look at what is this. This is the grid. You can switch on and switch off the grid like that. Now I have set my grid, so each this block is 1 inch, and each the grid line spacing is set to like 1/10 of a inch. Okay, now you could change stuff around a little bit. If you go to the preferences and pick on the draft, and you can see grid and snapping, you have the option to change that. I'm going to stick with what I got, so I'm not going to change anything, but in the preferences you can set the grid spacing and the grid size and also the grid color, and then main lines every 10, all that can be set. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything here. Now this is helpful, this grid is helpful because you can click on it and you can kind of get an approximate idea of your, the size of the model that you are going to create. So that's the usefulness of this. Now there is another button over here that is useful, that is to, this grid can be aligned to a certain workspace. Now currently this grid is aligned with XY workspace and it called top view. Now if you want to go and do front, now you have the ability to change that, and now it's in XC plane. Now if you go and change to YZ, you can do that too. So not only that, you can click on it and you can do some offsetting also. Let's see how you can do that. Let's say I want to offset this by 5 inches, so I say okay. Now actually it's offset by just a few, actually not 5 inches, but maybe like yeah, it's not 5 inches, probably half an inch. So let's see how much I can go back, and if I click back on it, it'll go back to the default. So I'm going to stick with XY plane for this exercise. So how do we want to do here? So since we have this grid already switched on, let's do a couple of things. We can draw a simple rectangle. Okay, So now you can see my cursor when I click on it, it locks into this, right? And the reason for, why it is locking into the grid is because I have this switched on. Now, okay, before I get into these details, let me give some introduction here. So this is the icon button that switch off and switch on the snap tool. So when I switch on the snap tool, and this is switched on but it is not active, okay, so each one can be individually activated or deactivated. So let's see, I have everything. I have the snap tool switched on, but I haven't activated any of these buttons. So let's try to draw something. It is not locking into the grid. Now let's see if I do this, and let's go back and start over again now. And then of course I have to switch on few things. Maybe I need to, let's say, snap near. It's not, still not coming. Let's see. Okay, so this guy. Okay, so this is not the wrong button. This is the button that actually I don't need this one. Don't need this one, but this is the one that locks into the grid. So let's draw something and click on it and drag it. Now you got a rectangle that is completely filled. Now you can, one thing you can do is, I'm going to Control Z and get out of it, and let's say start over again. Now in this case you can see that it is filled or unfilled. If it is unfilled, only you will get a boundary of the rectangle, not the filled one. So let's try that again. So I got this rectangle. Now you can remember when we used the sketch, we used to do something similar, right? You draw it in a 2D and you put some constraints around it and dimensions around it, and then you can kind of go out of the sketch and you can pad it, you can put some operations, and you can create objects, 3D objects out of it. So we can do the same thing here. Now if I get out of this, I have drawn this rectangle. Let's say I'm going to go back to the part design tool or part design workbench. Now I have the rectangle drawn here. Now what I can do is can go, I need to pick on this, the file name, and let's say I try to create a body out of this. So let's say now I'm in this body, this empty body, there's nothing in it, but I want to use this rectangle to pad this. So I'm going to click on this and say pad. Now let's say I'm going to say 1 inch. Now you would see there is a solid body. You got that. So this is essentially similar to what you do in a sketch. So you have a body, a 3D body, and this time rather than using a sketch, we use the draft tool to create it. So the advantage with the draft tool is that it can be used in conjunction with the sketch. So sometimes it is advantageous to do that because sketch always do 2D, but draft can be used to do some 3D features to be added into the sketch by doing stuff in this draft tool. Okay, so that's the advantage of using the draft. So this is let's go back to the sketch. I want to show you one more thing here. So let's go back here. Now I'm back in the draft workbench. Now if I want to draw something on this face, which is a solid face, okay, I can do that. And that's kind of the cool part of it is that you can still do something on this face as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a snap tool. Let's see what we need to switch on here. Okay, right. Okay, I need to switch on this uh, snap near uh, the button as well. So now I can pick on the on this face and start drawing stuff. Okay. Now, so we have another rectangle drawn. We can go back to part design. Now we have this rectangle. We got to pick on that, and we got to, let's say, another inch, and we got see, we got, now this is just a one single body connected. Okay, so they are not two separate bodies because it's only one I can see. Okay, so when you click on the body, its whole thing highlights, and if I press the space bar button, it'll go all gone. So it's just a one single body, but they are both connected. So what we did was we used the draft tool to create 3D features. Okay, 3D solid bodies. So that's cool. That's going to be useful. But let's do something a little bit more complicated. Okay, so just going to blow this one off. I'm going to say I'm going to go to a new body. I'm going to a new model. So I'm going to delete the old one, so I don't need that one. So we'll start fresh. Let's start with a sketch. So this exercise is to start with the sketch, go to the draft tool, put some features around the sketch, and then sweep it across, and then do go back to sketch again, attach the sketch to the draft object, and then sweep it again. So it's going to be a little bit complicated, but you will get the idea how to connect the sketch and the draft tools and working them together. Okay, so since I'm here, I'm going to start with a sketch, and let's do this. Let's do a circle, and let's do like, okay, so this size is fine, and I'm going to create another circle around it, and I'm not going to constrain it. Okay, so I'm just going to put some, I'm not going to fully constrain it, but I'm going to put some dimensions around. So I'm going to put the diameter of this circle to be, let's say, make it 0.75, and make this one like 1 inch, some arbitrary dimensions. Okay, so now we got the sketch. I mean, I can constrain it, but I don't think we need to do that. We'll get out of here, and let's go to the draft tool. Now you might think, okay, I won't be able to pick this one, but here you can pick it up because your snap tools are on. Okay, switched on. So in this situation, I don't need these ones switched on, so I'm going to switch off, but I need to pick on the center. So I'm going to switch on this circle center or snap center icon. Okay, now let's do, okay, so so let's say I'm going to go back and show you what I did. So when you are just picking this one, it won't pick up anything, but I want to put a point at the center of this circle. So I'm going to click this guy. Now when I hover around, I'm not even clicking, I mean I hover around, it automatically identify the center. Okay, now one thing I want to be sure that it's only pointing the center. I'm going to switch off these guys and only going to keep this. I don't even need this one. So let's try that again. So okay, now when I, let's say if I put this, now I have a point at the center. Okay, so that's cool. We and that is, you know, see what we have done. We draw something in the sketch tool, we came to the draft, and we snapped on to the feature that was drawn in sketch tool, and we were able to pick the center and put a point at the center. So that's what I call you're combining your modeling with sketch and the draft workbenches. Okay, so let's continue to put few more things. Now the next point I'm going to do is, now I want to pick on this point. I want to create another point, offset that point uh, to in z direction. So to do that, I don't need this center snap tool anymore. What I need is near. So this guy, yeah, it's going to be useful for me, and I'm going to switch on a couple of these things as well, just in case I need them. So now it is snapping onto that. Okay, now it's snapped onto that point. Now you can see on the global X, Y, and Z on the left hand menu, I have dimensions, and it shows the same coordinates as the current point is. So in order for me to offset the second point with respect to the first one in only in global Z, I need to maintain the same XYZ, XY, and give a dimension to the Z. Okay. Now, how to do that? The easiest way to do that is I'm going to use the tab in my keyboard. I'm going to press tab key, and it's going to say go to the second one, and then I'm going to press the tab key again, and I'm in this global Z now coordinate. I'm going to say half inch. Okay? Say enter. Now let's rotate this model and see. Yeah, so you got a second point about half an inch away from the first point in 3D space. Okay, let's put few more points, and you'll get to know what I'm doing once we get going on this. Okay, so let's put another point and let's do lock into that second point, and let's do the same thing. I'm going to go to, and then I'm going to say let's say 10 inches maybe. Okay, so now I got another point and I'm going to keep putting few more points like that. Okay, so this is the fourth point I'm creating, locking into this one. This time I'm going to change the xy coordinates too. So since it is already x coordinates is logged in, I'm going to say 5 and click on the tab key, is moving to the y, and now I'm going to say 10, tab again, going to say 20, and enter. Let's see. Yeah, so there's another point created. Let's keep going, few more points. I know you're not going to create ton of points, we're going to probably create 2 more. Okay, so let's put, and then once again start with this. Now we have 5. I'm going to put some dimension, arbitrary dimensions here. Since this is just example, you could put some numbers here, but if you're doing, if you're doing actual model, you will know what the dimensions you want. Okay, so you will have in your mind or in your paper, you will have, okay, I need to put these numbers and create points, but I'm going to create some arbitrary points here. So this is the 5th point I created, and let's create one more point. Let's say I'm going to put a 1 and 30, let's say 35, just few arbitrary points. So 6 points were created. Now I'm going to use this B spline in draft creation tool, and connect all these points. So it's going to create some kind of a curve or a B-spline. Let's lock into that. Now, since it is the snap tool is on, I'm going to lock into these easily. Okay, so we got that. Okay, let's see. Got this guy. It's creating something. Okay, so let's escape out of that. Now you got nice curve. So this I could have put more points and had a better control over this, and that's what you will do in a real world. When you create a real world model, if you want to create a spline, you are going to put as much points as possible to get a better control. But in this case, this example, I'm not going to bother too much about it. So we got a bunch of point. We created the spline. So so that's cool, and let's keep doing it now. So remember, we started with a sketch. Now we add a spline. Now we want to go and create another sketch at this end. Okay, so that's the goal here. So how do we going to do that? Okay, so in order to go and create a sketch, I need to go to the sketch tool. So before that, okay, so before we go into the sketch tool, we have to do a couple of things, because see, you can't just create a sketch plane. So because if you have to create a sketch here, you have to put a plane that is perpendicular to this. I would maybe call it this line, or a B spline. You have to create that, right? So if you try to create, just click on this sketch, and it will appear, the sketch will appear here. It's not going to appear here. So you have to do some work before we do that. So that's where we will use the datum line and datum plane. Okay, these two going to be help us to do that. So let's start with the datum line, because if you just try to put a datum plane here, it might not work. Okay, so you will start with a datum line. So let's create a datum line here. Now so here is the situation. I mean, I in my previous tutorial I talked about the putting datum planes and stuff like that. So this time we are going to deal with the datum line. Okay, now I need to have this datum line tangent to this. Okay, so how do we do that? So I can say, okay, so it's already picked on the B spline. So it's already picked on the B spline. Now let's try to let's go to tangent and see what happens. So before we go there, I want to go to the reference 2 and then start with that, because that probably is the one going to help us, because the reference 1 or selecting this already B spline is selected. So FreeCAD assume stuff. Okay, so that's good or bad, but it does that. It is already kind of selecting the B spline. So I'm going to say it's okay. You go and select this, because there's only one B spline here, so it's the one that it's already selected. So I'm going to go to the reference to the second one. Now there's nothing, it hasn't selected anything. Let's pick that and say okay, so it say tangent. Okay, so that worked. So somehow what I did was I pick the vertex first and then pick the tangent, and it worked. Yeah, so somehow that's how it kind of worked this time around. Okay, so now we got the datum directly tangent to this B spline. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to get out of that. So it asks you to do whether it is an independent copy or not. So I'm going to say make it independent. I'm going to so go back, and now it is, we have a datum line at this location. Now I want to create this datum plane. So I'm going to pick on that 0.5, and that's what I have already picked on the 0.5. So what happened was, since I picked that 0.5, the plane is going to be on that 0.5, but it is on the XY coordinates system. So it is not perpendicular to the datum line. So that's the problem. So we need to figure it out how to make that plane perpendicular to the datum line. So there are a number of options here, but none of them really works. Okay, I mean they're not relevant for this application. I don't know why they put it. So what I'm going to do is, there are way to you can get around this. So I'm going to click on the first option, reference, and see what we can do. I'm going to deactivate the point, and maybe, if I pick on the line, what happens? Okay, that's what happens, right? So when I pick on that datum line, it what it did was it put the plane perpendicular to it. So that's how you can do this. It's not all that intuitive, but when you practice it a little bit, and you kind of study that a little bit, you will get the hang of it. So now I got what I want. Now I click on this datum plane and put the sketch on that datum plane. Okay, so now I can create a couple of circles. Okay, so I'm start with this. I'm going to create one, another one. Okay, and I'm going to keep some dimensions around this guy. 5 point, let's see, 5.3, and let's see what do we got. 5.6 maybe. Okay, so we completed this sketch. So I'm going to get out of this. Now you can see I got two separate planes. Now I want to sweep across this. So the easiest way to do that is to pick on either one of them, fine, either one of the sketches, and click on the sweep icon, and now I need to add this edge. So this is called edge, but I need to add this spline to this. So I'm going to click on this. Now it's thinking about it. It's doing something in the background. Let's see what we get. Okay, so I got the pipe, which is constant thickness, but that's not what I want. I want it to be expanding pipe. So I'm going to go and go multi-sector, add section, and pick on this. So say okay. Okay, so we got I would say expanding pipe, and you can see the complexity of this. Okay, it's it's in a it's a 3D pipe that actually, if you try to do this using sketch, how many planes you have to draw? I mean, it's infinite planes you have to draw in order to get this the B spline, right? So instead of doing that, you could use the draft tool, and you can do it, in a much simpler fashion. So that's the kind of the advantage you have do using the draft tool. So you can, you what in the sketch world, you're kind of a limited to into 2D space, and you try to orient the sketches in different directions and try to somehow draw multiple sketches to build a 3D model. But instead of doing that, what we did was we just used the draft tool directly. With just two sketches we could get a very complicated 3D model. So that's the purpose of this tutorial. And I think you if you start thinking about it, you can kind of grasp the fundamentals behind this. Combining sketch tool with the draft tools, you can do a lot of models that are complicated. So I hope you learned something new in this tutorial, and if you like it, just press the like button, and please leave comments. And I would thank you for watching this video, and we'll come up with another video in few days time. Thank you. Bye.